met my dad for the first time when I was 16. He lived in Washington State. We lived across the country. And I actually went out and met him for the first time and lived with him for my junior year in high school. On my way out, my mom said, "Well, you're just like your dad." And after spending that year with my father sent me back to my mom and said, "You're just like your mom." They both hated each other incredibly.
You're watching the Spotlight Network. Starring Hollywood's newsman, Logan Crawford.
They now believe a single member.
He works with TV and film legends. And now, Logan's shining the spotlight on the world's top emerging authors and creators.
International were abducted.
This is Spotlight with Logan Crawford. Streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV.
I'm Logan Crawford, and right now we're uncovering the raw, powerful, and ultimately redemptive journey in a powerful book that is called Wanted, and is written by a terrific author. His name is Robert Dale Watkins. This gripping memoir pulls back the curtain on a childhood filled with abuse, abandonment, and trauma, set against a backdrop of poverty and pain. But through the darkness, the author shares how a relationship with God became his refuge, his healing, and his proof that he was always wanted. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him on TV today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. Dale, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you, Logan.
This is a powerful book. It must have been difficult to write, to go through the pain and suffering that you went through as a child and a young man.
To put it simply, it took 35 years to come to the place where I could face it. Then it took 7 versions over 5 years to finally get to the place. And one day, my Lord and Savior just gave me the show me how to write it. And it's actually the first abuse book that I've ever seen written as a narrative. Usually it's a biography, autobiography, but I think what I do really well in the book is actually bring you in to the actual scenes of what happened. And it brings it home. It's very graphic, but at the same time, it's very moving.
Is moving. The title of your book is very moving as well, Wanted. I mean, I think everybody wants to feel that they belong. Everybody wants to feel that they're loved. Everybody wants to feel wanted. As a child, you did not. Talk to us a little bit about your journey from feeling unwanted to realizing that you were loved, but maybe not by who you thought.
Yeah. I was, so my father left when I was 2 months old, and my mom literally just abused the whole family for all of my childhood. And so the best way I can put that into perspective was I met my dad for the first time when I was 16. He lived in Washington State. We lived across the country. And I actually went out and met him for the first time and lived with him for my junior year in high school. On my way out, my mom said, "Well, you're just like your dad." And after spending that year with my father sent me back to my mom and said, "You're just like your mom." They both hated each other incredibly. And I was sitting on that plane with just a recognition that I was in complete rejection all the way around. So I go through my journey in the book. The Lord brought me to him when I was 10, really got me to know him when I was 17. But you'll see these little hidden references within my story that I bring him in and he's talking to me. Not that I really understand who he is at the moment. Later on, I discover really who he is. But I wasn't really understanding who I was and that I was his child. I was designed and wanted by him until one day at a job site, he turned to me and said, "I saw everything, and I need you to go back." And that started it. That started it. One day I was looking up at the moon at one of my job sites when I was working at night. And as alone as the moon was in the sky, he was there watching every moment of my childhood. And it was that reflection and that moment that I began to understand that he was there every moment. And then the redemption process really began.
Yeah. So you basically just felt the presence of God and you heard his word?
Yes, but it was over a period of literally 35 years.
Hmm.
So he had talked to me, and I knew his presence was there over and over and over again. But I was so rejected by everything and everyone in my life that there was nothing for me to do except for kick myself underneath the bed every single day. And until I really, I knew he loved me, but there was no grasping that from the terror and the torture that was literally inside of me. And there was no place for that knowledge to sit as intimate knowledge, like you know a person. And once he turned to the place and he showed me intimately inside that he had designed and perfected me and even brought me to and used all of those moments to where I am today. And he built me up to a place and he just powerfully overcame the terror, the trauma, the torture that no therapy can do, that no coping and survival mechanism can do. He brought me and he showed me how much he treasures me, that he knew me before he put me in the very womb of the woman who beat me.
Yeah. Amazing. Very, very powerful. Did your parents or your mother acquaint you with faith? Did she bring you to church? Did she tell me a little bit about your religious upbringing, if you had any?
No, there was no religious upbringing. It was all about her. It was imagine a vacuum cleaner sucking up dirt. That's what
Mm,
my mom was, sucking up the emotions of her children. It
mm,
was hypnotic. It was comatose. It was frightful and always in a state of panic, always in a state of panic. That's what life was with my mom,
mm,
even after our relationship later. Anytime, even to today, I'll still get around somebody that's like that. My mom has passed away now, but even still today, people who still get like that, I'll catch myself getting back to that hypnotic moment where somebody that's so driven within themselves, so absorbed within themselves that I still get caught up in that. And you're like, oh, okay, I got to pull back, got to go back to some of the things the Lord has taught me how to do,
mm,
and and say what He has said for me to say about His word, His promises, who He says I am, who He says He is, and He's the King of Kings, and His name is above every name. So how I came to faith was actually very interesting. So my brother, we were never allowed to leave the house ever. So one day my brother's 16 years old and he's given permission to go spend the night at a friend's house. And they have an overnight and he meets the Lord overnight. He has a beautiful sunset um, uh, transformation of his life. He comes into my house the next day and says, Dale, you got to have this. You've got to have it. He's pushing it on me. We spent about 3 or 4 hours. And and I record this. This is how I met the Lord. And I said, no, I don't want it. And so after, as I said, about 3 hours of going through that and him just badgering me and just telling me how good it was, he finally said, pray with me. And I said, okay, I will. So I prayed with them. And what's funny is there was really no radical transformation.
mm,
But what happened was he came in,
mm,
he entered. And over the next 2 to 5 years, 7 years actually, he just every once in a while would just talk to me. And I knew it was him. I just didn't know it was him, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
7 years later, I was in a church service with my dad. My dad is taking me and driving me there. And he says, he gives me our Jim Crow reference and says, "You guys, this is just like everybody just diving over the edge and killing themselves." And I'm like, "Well, great, thanks, Dad. I appreciate that." As we're about ready to walk into this church service that I really hadn't been a part of at all, but I heard about it on the radio. And so I walked in, and this is one of the last chapters in my story, and I'll save it a little bit, but literally I was having so much butterflies in my stomach, and I was shaking like crazy, but it was so God. So I just followed everybody else. Went up, and they called them to the front, and the Lord just took over. He gave me life.
Yeah.
That's when I was really knew that it was Him all this time.
Amazing. It's an amazing story. Tell us about your relationship with your siblings. Were they able to overcome their abusive relationship that they had with your mother and obviously your father as well, or no relationship with your father?
You know how to ask the deep questions, don't you? Okay, so um, when you have a tormented home like we ran, when we were in, everybody has to find their own survival mechanism and coping mechanism and has to run and get out in whatever way they can. And it caused all four of children, which I'm 6 years younger than everybody else. So in some ways, I was a lone child, even though my siblings were there for many years. So I don't want to talk about too much of a couple of my siblings because I wouldn't have that permission. But we all went our different ways. Some I connected with over the years, one or two, and a couple I didn't connect with at all. But my brother, the one who led me to the Lord when I was 10, we've stayed together, and we call ourselves double brothers, double blood brothers, both biologically and by Jesus' blood.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
But
amazing when you are in a circumstance like that. It's almost like Stockholm syndrome in a way. You just don't want to be the one who catches the wrath of mom on any given day. You almost rather it be one of your siblings than you. So it's a very, very torturous, very, very painful situation, and a cruel situation, of course. And when you're in it, it's just a endless nightmare, I presume, because time moves much more slowly when you're in your primary years than you are when you're a mature man.
absolutely.
What advice would you have to a child who is in a similar environment, or a person who was in a similar environment and is struggling with their own identity now and their own self-worth because of it?
Well, let me first say this. Abuse back then was a one-off. It did happen, but it was hidden, and it was if it was made known, you were sort of rejected and judged by the community, and why don't you just be like the rest of us? Now, brutality is commonplace. It's normal. Most people that you see walking in the streets are going to have some type of destruction in their lives. So when you ask that question, that's referring to a person that's in this situation, I would even exclaim, and this is actually what we're really drawn towards, and what we're really trying to build from my story, is that we really are at a place where the answer to your question needs to be there for every person opportunity, because we're so driven by psychology, which is all centered around man. And psychology and psychiatry do not believe in the soul. You will never hear the term soul in their propaganda, in their therapy, in their sessions. And so basically what it does is it completely wipes God off the map and says that he cannot have a portion, a place. The very designer of who we are cannot have a place to say how we get healed. So here's what I would say to you. First of all, Holy Spirit was there. He's my helper. He witnessed it all. He watched over me until I was ready to face it. And then he warred on my behalf. He was my warrior. He sit there and he roared like a lion at not just the lies I believed and the enemy that tried to keep them there, but also the torture, the panic, the terror, and all of that stayed with me throughout all of my adulthood. Then after he warred, he brought me to the place where he showed you he won it all through his pain, through his suffering, through his cross. And he won it all by his resurrection. And then he gave me his life in place of his. He wants me as he does you.
It is a powerful, powerful message. It is a powerful, powerful book. It is called Wanted. It is more than a memoir. It is a testament to survival, spiritual transformation, and the enduring truth that every person has worth and is indeed wanted. Dale, thank you so much for joining me here today on Spotlight.
My pleasure.
Pleasure's been all mine, sir. I appreciate your candor, your insight, and your wonderful faith. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time.